This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right, full custom home construction and home remodeling. Call my guy Eric at 305-433-4843 in Dade and Broward County. Perk, just kind of looks like the entire team is going to be reconstructed soon at this pace.
Man, Big O, this is. I didn't expect this. I actually thought that the Dolphins were going to come out with ways to get the ball to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, and that we were going to see some big plays tonight. And it wasn't anything close to that. And look, this goes back to this team being poorly constructed by Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel. I think it's mostly Mike McDaniel because I'm not sure that Chris Grier has a vision. He does whatever the head coach wants. But you can't have a team, Big O, that's built like this. And I've been warning about this since December of 2022, that this offense is about two things, Tyreek Hill and the threat of Tyreek Hill. And if they can't get him the ball, they can't score. And that's what we're seeing here. I can't
But it's
understand.
bad coaching. But it's bad coaching because real coaches would find a way to get other people involved and move the offense and be more creative. And like today, I thought when you started Paul, I said in the pregame show, okay, so then that tells me you're going to try to run. Because if you're going to go all of a sudden and start doing a whole bunch of passing, now you're putting the young kid in a really unfavorable position in a game you desperately need. I'd rather have Kendall Lamb in that position. By the way, was Kendall Lamb banged up or anything? Or
nope, they just decided to take a look at Patrick Paul.
Okay, so I thought you would run because the kid can maul. If Paul gets his hands on you, it's over. I mean, he's a mammoth dude. He's strong. But if you're going to put him in pass pro, then there might be mistakes. And sure enough, they went in passing mode, and I just didn't understand that with Huntley and the running backs and everything. I thought you should have established early on a running game. You should have tried at least to try to establish a running game. So if you get that going, then I think the passing game becomes a little easier for Huntley. But if you put him in obvious passing situations, it just becomes harder for a kid. I don't even blame Huntley for anything today, bro. It's not his fault. He was not. It's not. They put him in a position to fail, basically.
Yeah, and when you talk about the runs, Big O, this team is not built to run the ball. It's just not. You don't have anybody who can do 20 carries a game week after week after week. They're going to break down. Mostert will break down. Achane will break down. We don't know what Jalen Wright will do. Jeff Wilson tonight was being seen by the trainer. You have these speedy guys. You don't have anybody who's built to carry the ball 20 times. And look, I think Mike McDaniel also doesn't have faith in the run. If I'm not mistaken, in 2022, didn't Mostert average 5.1 yards per carry? And you're just wondering, why aren't they going back to him? They were 31st in rushing attempts in 2022, McDaniel's first year. Last year, they improved to 15th or 16th. But you still don't see a commitment to the run. You see the run when they can't pass deep. But there's not a commitment to, hey, let's come out and establish the run. It's we're going to try to run to keep them off.
No, it gets worse than that. When it's working, they still don't commit to it.
Right. He goes away from it. And look, he's a young play caller, and so I understand that part of it. I think as games wear on, Mike McDaniel thinks, you know what? Why am I wasting all this time when I could go one shot to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle? I'm going 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards. I want 60 and 70, and he gets impatient. But this team has got to be constructed differently. You got to. Chris Brooks wasn't going to be the answer, but you need something. You need somebody. And look, Big O, where's Jonnu Smith been? Last week when they're on the 6-yard line, they have 4 tight ends active. 3 of them got in that series. Not Jonnu Smith. You threw to Tanner Connor. You had Durham Smythe out there. You had Julian Hill with all his penalties. He was out there on the field, and Jonnu Smith, the guy who you got for these situations, is not on the field. And so it's the play calling plus the
You
roster
watch
construction.
You watch Gesicki in Cincinnati. They found a way to use him over there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's. I was just talking about this before you got on. I know I'm an old head, but it's like they should have got Jim Jensen and made him an H-back.
Right.
Make him a third down specialist. You know what I'm saying? And he was white and slow, and he made him a third down specialist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Ron Gadsden ran fast as my grandmother, but yet had a skill set that you could not stop. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
If you're a coach, you find whatever skill set that player has, and that's how you put him in there and use him in that. He's not good at that, dude. He doesn't understand that. Jonnu Smith, we watched it in practice all over the place.
Sure did. We both sat there, Big O, and now he won't call it. It's like he was showing everything he had in the preseason, and now he's holding it back in the regular season. It's backwards. It's totally backwards. And here's another thing, Big O. You know, Tyreek and the drops. You know, I've written about this. Last year he had 12 drops. He was second in the league. Why is he not running after this lateral, Big O? Like the ball is rolling around and he's just kind of casually going after the ball. And, you know, we saw the same thing last week with Achane, right? Shortly before the half, and his helmet pops off and he's just casually walking over there to get his helmet. And it's like, Devon, the clock is ticking. These traits of this team don't reflect well on the coach. It doesn't, you know, I don't know what happens when you get 3 holding penalties and an illegal procedure, right? Do you get benched? Do you have to run wind sprints? Like, I don't know that there's the reprisal for bad behavior on this team, but you cannot have Tyreek just walking after a loose ball like that. That's unacceptable.
Well, I think he treated that ball like a pregnancy test.
Oh, there you go.
Well, those things have been scary for him. I mean, you know, he's hit on a lot of those. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it's kind of been an issue for him. But listen, it's not only the drops, but it's the mental mistakes also with the penalties. Because, you know, one guy sent me on Twitter, well, all these referees, I go, so how come they're not calling it for the Titans? How come they're not making all those mistakes? Oh, I see. They're better coached. You know, and so I told them, you know, stop whining. But this is the problem with Tyreek. He has a ton of brain farts. And it's the reason why I said you don't give him any more guaranteed money. Let him play through this year. Let him prove to you that he's kind of turned the corner of maturity on and off the field and all that. And he's still, by the way, in practice, he has drop passes all the time, dude. It's not like this is kind of in his DNA. It's kind of what it's, you know. And by the way, Waddle has the same disease.
Yeah, he had an ugly drop tonight. I mean, look, again, you know, I wrote about this last year, Tyreek with the drops. I mean, you can't have that drop against Kansas City and Germany and have them take it back for a touchdown. You can't drop the potential touchdown pass in Philly. You just can't.
And he talked all that shit before the Kansas City game. I'm going to be your worst nightmare and all that. And you have the fumble for the touchdown and you drop the bomb, by the way, that Tua put in your hands. Okay. Yeah. Another drop, but the pass was a little behind. So I'll give him a break on that one. He still should have caught it. If you're a great receiver, great hands, you still catch it. But I'll give him a break because the slant, it was a little behind. Tua didn't. But the deep ball, he should have had it, and that was points. And if you don't fumble, you win that game, by the way.
Yeah, and look, I'm not going to sit here and rip Tyreek constantly. He deserves to be criticized. He's still the best player on that team. He's still a gold jacket guy, right? He's still a Hall of Famer. But you just can't have these brain farts and these lapses like you're walking after the ball, a loose ball that's rolling around. I will say this, Big O. Being in that locker room and talking to the guys tonight, I don't think this team is about to break apart. You know, and I was talking to them about.
They're waiting for Tua, bro. They're waiting for Tua.
Well, I don't think that's the case. I just think that, look, this team, and I was talking to them about, look, you guys have been through 1-7. You've been through the 5-game losing streak in December. You've been through the huge defensive injuries late in the season. Does one feel worse than the other? And I probably asked like 6 or 7 players, and they were like, look, all of that stuff is in the past. We don't like to compare tragedies, but we have been through tough times, and they were saying that they will dig their way out of this one. So, for anybody who's wondering, it's not a scene in that locker room of players bitching at each other and pointing fingers and pissed off at each other or Mike McDaniel or anything like that. They have been
be pissed off at. That's who they should be pissed off at. They shouldn't be pissed off at the players. They should be pissed off at that coach.
But look, the fans should have been pissed off at Mike, like for the last year and a half. That this offense and I kept warning that this offense is not about what you think it is. They beat up on bad teams and they get beaten down by good teams, and the parties were rolling and the touchdown sellies and all of that. But lurking beneath it, this was a one-trick pony offensively. And here's the other thing, Big O. I move around that locker room. I talk to as many players as I can about as many topics as I can. I talked to Tim Boyle and to Skyler about, is this too deep safety thing real? And they both said, yes, it's very real. Teams are doing this league-wide, especially against us. And I've written about the unscouted looks that the Dolphins see and the exotic defenses. But they were both saying, look, you've just got to be able to run the ball and make a team drop that safety down into the box. The Dolphins can't do that. They didn't say that, but that's right. That's the conclusion that you come to, that okay, if you're going to play those two high safeties, we're going to run Derrick Henry or somebody like that at you. And obviously they don't have a Derrick Henry, but we're just going to pound you and make you make tough choices. The Dolphins can't make anybody make a tough choice. That's part of the problem with this roster construction. And Big O, the thing that amazes me is Mike McDaniel comes from a system where you had a Christian McCaffrey, you had a George Kittle. Like, where is that here? I know he wants to be different and he doesn't want to be a Shanahan clone, but at some point you've got to replicate success. Like, you can't totally go off on your own. So I'm waiting for the coaching adjustment to come. I know you are, but Mike McDaniel is a little more hard-headed. He's a little more hard-headed than I thought he was.
Yeah, I don't expect the adjustment already at this point. If he hasn't learned by now, I think he's set in his ways, and I think he's going to take the entire organization down, and everybody's going to get fired, and they're going to clean house, and so that's what's going to happen. I already seen this story. They'll struggle. Two of them will come back. They'll win enough games. They'll say, "Oh, well, we need to tweak it in the off season." He comes back on the hot seat next year. He doesn't make it, and then they fire everybody. And that's kind of what's going to end up happening, because they're not going to give the front office a chance to hire their third coach. Well, they clearly hired the wrong coach, unfortunately.
Well, you have to wonder, in that building, does anybody have the balls to tell Mike McDaniel, look, your offense isn't working, you need to make some adjustments? Or are they telling him that and he's just not listening? Because I can't believe that anybody would let this go on like this for this long and without telling Mike, man, we got to make some changes. This isn't working. This is not working. And here's the other thing, Big O. When I was last year, I was writing, I wouldn't extend anybody, because if this thing does go sideways, Chris Greer will be the one you want to fire, but you don't want to bring in a new GM and tell them, well, Mike McDaniel has an extension and Tua has an extension, so you have to work within them and the Mike McDaniel system. Like, I don't know that any GM wants to come in after looking at this offense, this one-trick pony offense, and saying, yes, I'm going to put my reputation on the line for this offense. I think a new GM wants his own coach, and the new coach wants their own quarterback, and so you're going to be in that cycle of, well, you got a new GM, but he's saddled with a coach and a quarterback he doesn't want. I don't want to go down that path, because it's only.
But we're looking at it, aren't we? But we're looking at it because of Mike McDaniel. I still think with this talent, a real coach is easily 2-2 or 3-1.
Yeah, you've got so much talent here. There's no reason to be 1-3. Oh, but right, not because even without Tua, like we know the names, right? Tyreek and Jalen Waddle and Javon Holland and Jordan Poyer and Jalen Phillips, and right. I mean, you still got talent. You can still win games.
But you need a real coach at this moment, and unfortunately, he's he's a play designer, dude. He's not even an offensive coordinator, much less a head coach, because he has all the weapons and he has what he needs, but he doesn't know how to really put it together, and he doesn't know how to create rhythm with any of it. And he's also very disruptive, because when he does have rhythm, he does a job of disrupting the rhythm that he has, like with running, at times. So it's just really frustrating to see. And to me, unfortunately, you talk about all the talent, but I think you can win with this talent. The problem is, coach, you're kind of in a screwed up. And at what point, I know players told you they were all fine, but deep down inside, they have to know that guy doesn't have the answers for us. They have to.
Big O, it's interesting because, I call the Mike McDaniel era the great experiment. I've never seen player empowerment to this level. I mean, 2 years ago, you're asking Tyreek Hill if he's going to okay the Eli Apple acquisition because Tyreek and Eli have had beef online. Are you kidding me? No. Like, why are you empowering players like this? Who's in charge? And I think the players really like the empowerment angle, but get past what Jordan Poyer said about they might be soft if you hit them in the mouth. Calais Campbell, I was asking him about, as you were looking around the league for your next team, and Calais said, well, yeah, I always heard that it was a little easier here, a little softer here. And then he said, but I found out that's not true. And I'm like, no, that's the reputation, that you punch them in the mouth, they fold, and it's a soft run organization. It's as my colleague Dave Hyde called it, it's Camp Mike. I mean, it's just so easy around here that he doesn't push them, and I think that the players still like that. But I do think eventually they're going to look around and go, man, all this talent, like we need somebody to kick us in the butt so that we maximize our abilities.
Dude, how have you ever heard of players pulling themselves out? Are you kidding me? No, I'll tell you when you get the hell off the field. No, no. Right. I'm paying you $50 million. Stay your asses out there on the field. I couldn't imagine O.J. McDuffie pulling himself off on a third down.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Are you serious? Like, O.J. McDuffie would be pissed if he played on that third down and you didn't throw it to him.
Yep.
Okay? Yep. Much less, he's not going to walk off the field on third down, or Irving Fryer or Mark Clayton or Mark Duper or Rondé Gadsden or anybody respectable. I've never seen that in my life. The receivers are walking off. I'll tell you when the hell you come off the field. God damn it. Get the hell out of here. You go run routes. That's where we pay your ass. And if you're tired, well, then apparently you're not in great shape. Yeah. Apparently you're not in Pat Riley shape. That's for damn sure.
Right. Exactly.
Seriously. Imagine telling Don, no, I got to get out. Don Shula telling, what?
Yeah, no. That's not happening.
Eric Spoelstra, no, I got to get the hell out of here. Get your ass on the court there and start playing. That's not going to – come on, man. That's insanity what's going on there. So it's just – I don't know where you go from this, because that kind of country club bullshit, that you got to change that.
Yeah.
Your most important players have to be on the field the entire time. You cannot have Grant Dubose and Robbie Chosen running routes in important games, dude.
Right. Right. Yeah, you're throwing deep to Tanner Connor. A lot of this just doesn't make any sense. And look, I like Mike McDaniel. I respect Mike McDaniel, but these problems have been brewing since his first year. Like late in that year, these problems have been brewing, and they got away with it last year. But this year, it's biting them in the butt big time.
All right, what do you got going on the Sentinel so folks can check you out?
Well, one thing that I'm going to do, Big O, this week is I'm going to write a column talking about how September football has changed in the NFL. And I talked to a few players, Calais Campbell and Mike McDaniel, Danny Crossman, guys who have been in the league. And my contention, Big O, is that now that training camp has changed, right? The starters only do the joint practices, right? They don't, and then the youngsters are the ones who play the preseason games. In September, a lot of these veterans and starters are playing together for the first time for an extended period in game conditions. And for the last couple of years, we've seen choppy play in September. Scores are down right now, but I think, and these others agreed with me, it's because it's a cause and effect from training camp that that you used to have that third game, that preseason game. Remember the dress rehearsal where the starters play the first half and into the third quarter. The first time they play together is the season opener the last 3 years. So September football has changed. And so what you see now, you could see something vastly different in December and January. I know Dolphins fans are hoping for that, but yeah, league-wide, September football is changing and has changed.
All right, follow him on Twitter at Chris Perk, and of course, catch his work there at the Sun Sentinel. As always, Perk, appreciate you, my brother. We will catch up next week, my friend.
All right, we'll do it again, Big O. Thanks, man.
You got it. There you go. The great Chris Perkins with our EJDconstruction.com Miami Dolphins post-game report.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.